Hello, my name is Dan Brook, a retired cleric and academic from Hudson here. We're delighted you're sharing another time with us, different voices, shared visions. If you've seen us before, you know we are always excited to come together with 3 points of view. There are 3 religions that have the same sort of father, if you will, Father Abraham. It's the Jewish religion, the Christian religion, and the Islam religion. And we share so many things in common. We're always happy to come and have any opportunity to share with you the great gift of religion, much of which we share together. But as we're doing this, we're about 2 weeks before Christmas. We're in the midst of Hanukkah. On either the 21st or 26th of December, the birth of the Prophet Muhammad is acknowledged. And so we're in a season of a lot of fuss and rush as we get ready for the various, or are in the midst of various celebrations. I myself learned a bad lesson last night as I was going too fast and slipped on a rug and hit an immovable wall. So I have a reminder for the rest of the season to slow down and concentrate a little more on the object of our discussion today, which is talking about peace. The thing as we are preparing that at least struck me is that whether you use the term Yahweh, which is a Jewish or Hebrew term, or God, an English term, or Allah, the Islam name for God, no matter the language, no matter the differences that we have between us, all agree that whether it's Yahweh or God or Allah, all desire only one thing, or one primary thing. And that is that all people are to pursue and experience to the greatest extent possible either salam, or shalom, or peace. It is the theme that runs throughout all of our scriptures, Jewish, Christian, or Islam. And in each case, it means a lot more, really, than just the absence of violence or war. The Arabic salam has a real broad meaning. It means restoring relationships, creating holistic conditions for all humans to flourish. The Hebrew shalom broadly means much the same: to promote spiritual and relational well-being of self and others, to work for social justice, to have good health, good fortune, and to work about being right with God and all people in the community. And so the English word peace also means more than just absence of war or violence. It too means having a certain mental calm or serenity, freedom from dispute or dissension among self or between self and others, between individuals or groups, and freedom from all those disquieting and oppressive thoughts or emotions that tend to drag us down. So the whole point of our discussion today is that, in summary, no matter how you say it, our Allah, our Yahweh, our God, each calls us out in the world to address the hostilities among peoples through love and through forgiveness and through reconciliation. That is, salam, shalom, peace. I say that because, as all of you know, we are living in very troubling times again. Our world, instead of speaking of peace, speaks of fear, of hatred, of malice, of retribution, even though it's almost a statistical zero that any of us watching today or among you today will be killed by a terrorist attack. That's almost all we are hearing about in public conversation these days, even though we have 0 chances of being killed by a terrorist. Our chances of being killed by a gun, however, are 1 in 25,000, and close to the very top of the various things that can kill us. And yet the terrifying rhetoric in the political environments these days raises unreasonable fears and cries for more guns as a response intensifies. There are just absolutely horrible vilifications of humans, of individuals, of groups, and dramatic violations of thou shalt not murder. I bring that up because in all of the native languages of our various religions, the correct translation is thou shalt not murder. In thinking from Hebrew days, Greek days, Islam days, it's only post-living, people who have been born, that can be murdered. The physical act of taking another person's life. And so murder in all of our religious traditions also includes, and this is often forgotten, I think, the kind of thoughts and feelings of deep hatred and malice we hold against another person and another group. One of the people who helps us put this together sent me the other day something that was written by Dr. Neil Degrasse Tyson. You may remember that he's one of the most sort of famous, at least nationally, if not internationally, scientists these days. Here's something he said. I just ask you to concentrate on this a little bit. 1.4 million Americans died in all wars we have fought since 1776. The total number of people who have died in wars that we have fought since 1776 is 1.4 million. By 45 years ago already, 1960s, mid-1960s, 1.4 million Americans had died because of household guns. World War II, one of the most famous wars, and most of us supported it. 400,000 Americans died fighting in World War II. 400,000 Americans have died by household firearms just since 2001. 3,400 Americans approximately died by terrorism since 9/11, 2001. 3,400. 3,400 Americans have died by household firearms since just 5 weeks ago. Since President Obama took office, the rate of threats against him has increased by 400%. It's about 3,000 a year under President George W. Bush. President Obama receives 30 threats a day, over 11,000 a year. I give you that background just to sort of give a context for, I think, almost an overwhelming necessity to speak once again about peace, the meaning of peace, and the ways in which we individually and corporately can work toward changing the conversation these days from fear and retribution and violence to peace. Now that's a big a job today. I'm glad that all I have to do is moderate from this point on, and I would ask each of the people on our panel to introduce themselves first, and then we'll see if one of them will just start by trying to address this major problem. What in the world has happened to the concept of peace in our day? Rob, you want to introduce yourself first?
Sure. My name's Rob Wertheimer. I'm an attorney in downtown Hudson. I grew up in New York City. I am an adult child of a Holocaust survivor. My mom was a hidden child during World War II, first taken from Germany with her family and then in France. So I am Jewish. We're in the middle of Hanukkah, as you stated, and I work in downtown Hudson. And so we're just doing intros, and then, so we'll let you go.
Okay.
Well, can I just ask, every time you introduce yourself and your mother having a kind of a special category of a Holocaust survivor, a part of history I didn't know till I met your mother. Can you just briefly identify what category she was in, how she got into that category?
Well, she grew up in Mannheim, Germany. Her dad, my grandfather, died when she was about 2 years old, and she was living with her mom and her brother. And in about, say, 1938, 39 is when they had Kristallnacht, and then everything was starting to happen with the Holocaust and the final solution. They had to wear the yellow stars. They were restricted where they could shop, where they could go. And they were eventually shipped out of Germany by train to it was a concentration camp in France called Gurs, G-U-R-S, in the near the Pyrenees Mountains. And although it wasn't one of the major death camps, people did die there of starvation, malnutrition, other diseases. It was kind of a middle point for shipping the Jews and other prisoners of the Nazi regime to other locales. And through the auspices of France, they had a social services program called the OSE, which was Organisation Secours Enfants, OSE, and they were able to take children out from this camp and hide them all over France so they could survive. So when you say she was a hidden child, she lived with Christian families. She was actually in a convent for a while. They had giant orphanages in these French castles, and she was able to survive as a hidden child. And her brother as well, although they were separated for a couple of years during World War II. Unfortunately, her mother, Esther, my grandmother, was not able to get taken out and eventually was shipped to Auschwitz and perished in Auschwitz. So as a hidden child, she was protected by Christian families in France and was survived, and eventually in 1946 was able to come to America. So as a hidden child, she was about 8 years old in 1939 and was a child during World War II and was able to survive.
Thanks, Rob. Sometimes I think we forget how recent that history is and how extensive that kind of history is through the history of humankind. And it's good to be reminded, I think, of it.
Yeah. I've never heard that story, Rob. Thank you for sharing that. It's really moving to listen to that, and kind of chilling it also. Dean Simpson is my name. I'm a pastor in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, currently serving Grace Lutheran Church in Eau Claire, which is about an hour from here. So I commute and live with my mother and come back home here, but it's good to be here again, here in St. Croix County with you guys. So,
Do you have peace with your mother?
I do. I have peace with my mother. My mother's 90. She lives in her own place and drives her own car and has an extra bedroom. And it's really great for both of us to be able to spend that time together.
That's great. Thank you. Oscar?
Thank you. I'm Özcan Kilic, and I'm with the University of Wisconsin-River Falls, live in River Falls, originally from Turkey. And now it's been our 11th year we've been living here. And it's our 4th year, I believe, right? We've been together and talking about issues that really move us. So, and I'm very happy and proud, and it's my pleasure to be with a distinguished group of fine men. Let's put it that way. Thank you.
Maybe we can start right away by, well, first of all, thank you for the compliments,
Yeah.
as unreasonable as they may be. So how all this muss and fuss that's going on especially in the political world around here right now, with various presidential candidates really vilifying Muslims. How do you explain this to your children if they're old enough to have any discussion about it? How do you talk about it with your colleagues, your friends? How does it affect you personally?
I'm first saddened about the incident that happened maybe not even 2 weeks ago. And my deepest sympathy goes to the families of the victims, and my prayers are with the victims. Mm-hmm. And it's really not acceptable what happened there. Mm-hmm. It's a crime, it's a terror act. Mm-hmm. How you want to name it, it's horrible, mm-hmm. terrifying. And that was maybe the last drop and that kind of moved some people who are really expecting such acts, mm-hmm. To activate some resources that create hostility. And I don't know how to explain my emotional position, but I don't feel comfortable. That's maybe the best way to describe it. I don't feel comfortable. And when Rob mentioned about his mom, I mean, this could happen here very soon. And I didn't want to start this way, but I think for us, those who are intellectual, who are minded who are peacefully minded, we have a responsibility. The clergies, I mean, you dean, and the imams who preach to their congregation, they have a responsibility. And we as average citizens, Christians, Muslims, Jews, or whatever belief they're in, we have responsibilities to say stop to this. That's ridiculous, what's going on.
You said you didn't want to start the discussion this way. Thank you for
Yeah.
it. How did you want to start?
I want to start with expressing my condolences to the victims and their families. And I want to start about what peace means for a Muslim. Because Islam is the religion of peace. I read before I came here, we claim that Islam is the religion of peace because Islam means peace, unwordly translated. Some may not agree with that, and there's many counter-arguments about this because they find some verses in the Quran that are contradictory with this. And I can understand that, but that's a different subject. But the definition of a Muslim is someone, according to our Prophet, the Muslim is someone everyone is safe from, everyone is protected from. And you should be able to approach this person in a way that you shouldn't be afraid of any Muslims. So I'm self-critical about people who claim to be Muslims. So this is the definition of a Muslim. You are Amin. Amin is the Arabic word for it. A person who is a Muslim, others are Amin from, which means you're safe. If you encounter a Muslim, you're safe. Now I'm going back to these crazy people who call themselves Muslim. And I'm very heartfelt when I say that, and I'm very bitter about this, because whoever claims to be Muslim and does this, according to our Prophet, he can't be a Muslim, period. And I just want to know, I just want that our listeners, watchers, to know that whoever claims to be Muslim and does this can't be a Muslim, and that's the majority of Muslims who think so. Those are minority, but they're not Muslims. So sometimes I've been approached with, I say that ISIS, whatever they name themselves, they're not Muslims. They cannot be Muslims. They're astounded hearing this. No, they're not, period. So that's the reason why I feel in this regard very bitter, because we as Muslims, the imams, clergy, they have a duty to explain this. They have a duty to differentiate themselves, distance themselves from these people. I say people, they're not Muslims, I'm sorry. And whoever tries to understand what they're doing right now in the Middle East or here as a terrorist attack, they should know that this is not a problem that occurred a couple of years ago. That's a problem that started right after the Prophet died, 1,500 years ago. We had these groups in Islam. They were doing the same. They were putting the Quran on their spears, and they were doing this on the name of God, on the name of Allah, and were killing the Prophet's grandchildren, the Prophet's sons. They did that. They did that way back. Now they're doing it the same. Nothing different. The same people, the same mentality. In Islam, they call they're strangers. They're strangers to Islam. They're not Islam. Islam rejects these people. And my fellow Christian friends, Jewish friends, they should believe me. Islam, Muslim, doesn't accept these people. That's what I can say.
Well, I'm most appreciative of hearing that, even though we already knew it. It's good to hear it. And it's good. Maybe we should, and I'm sort of setting Mr. Wertheimer a record here to give him some time to think it, because I'm going to ask our Christian brother. When you hear that conversation, you think, I'm a Christian too, so I conjure up all the times to this very moment when the very same thing could be said of Christians. True or false?
Absolutely true.
For
Yeah, I was
example.
thinking the same thing. It's very interesting for me to sit here next to my Muslim brother, have you talking like that about what it means to be Muslim. And I'm thinking, shouldn't the same thing be said of a follower of Jesus? That of all people in the world, people ought to feel safe in the presence of a follower of Jesus who would rather die than kill, who would rather be killed than take up arms against another. And yet I sit between my Muslim brother and my Jewish brother, and I'm thinking of the history of Christian behavior in the world and the Holocaust that we just heard about, we're reminded of, and the Christian persecution of the Jewish people and of Muslim people in different times, and thinking we all want to claim the name of Islam or of Christian, and I want to say too, oh, the people that did that to the Jewish people, they're not Christian. But they were Christian. I can't disown that. I mean, so we're talking about a definition and a semantic problem, but we ourselves sometimes do things we know we should not do. We get caught up in feelings and in actions that take us outside of what we really believe in. And so are we ourselves Christian in those moments, or are we truly Muslim, or are we truly Jewish, followers of Torah and love your neighbor as yourself, which is an Old Testament quote. What a situation we human beings are in. And I think we live only by forgiveness, which is perhaps maybe the beginning of peace, is to recognize our need for forgiveness and to stand in that place. Because I just feel it's sort of like the most personal conversation we've had with Rob starting and your confession of faith. Standing in this place is full of pathos for me right now.
We're really grateful for Dick and for you bringing us together. And I just want that our viewers should understand that we can get together, really. I mean, if we want to fuel hatred, that's so easy. We can fuel hatred. There are people out there, they're already doing this, right? We can do it. But this is really the hardest part, what we do here. And I think that's what we need nowadays, because crazy people are trying to do crazy things. We can't let that happen. And I'm also addressing my Muslim brothers. We have a duty, we have a responsibility. And all of them know what the Quran says. Killing one human is killing the humanity. That's what it is. So that's the main. And again, we can talk about the interpretation of Islam and those groups who claim to be Muslims, the ISIL, Daesh, and Al-Qaeda, whatever they name themselves. What they do, they take away the Prophet and they try to connect with Quran, and this is their understanding. But the Prophet is his life, how he lived. He is the interpretation of the Quran. And if you take him away, then you deal with people like these people. They kill, they destroy, they don't have any, they're barbaric, you can name it. And I don't affiliate myself with them, and neither does the majority of, the Muslim. A Muslim can't affiliate.
Yeah.
It's very easy to pick a section of scripture maybe you saw on the web just this past week, the incident where, I think it was in the Netherlands, Holland, that they took a Bible, Old and New Testament, put the cover of the Quran on it, and were reading some quotes from it. The people saw it was from the Quran and asked, you also, so there you have it, right? In summary.
Yeah.
Rob, what can you add to it?
Well, just in general, from what from what you were saying, I don't use this lightly because there's so many times that people are comparing this and that to Hitler and the Holocaust and World War II. But as the warmongering and the fear increases, and you really do start to think when you actually have a candidate who the scary part is he's leading the polls, say that you keep a certain group of people out, period. It just reminds me of, when my mother was wearing the Jewish star, and when it doesn't seem that distant anymore. It's really scary what prejudice, what fear, what ignorance could allow to happen. And it's just, we're hoping that cooler heads will prevail and that the people in charge will take note. I think Time magazine just awarded the Person of the Year to the German Premier, Merkel, because of the openness of allowing the Syrian refugees in. And I think we have to remind ourselves of the Statue of Liberty, a gift from France showing that we need to be open on our borders. We need to be open and allow people in. That's what our country is based on, is this freedom of religion, freedom to grow, and for everyone to have the same rights and abilities and opportunities that we all have. And I think we need to remember that and to open up to that and to understand that, like you're saying, this is just a tiny minority of extremists, just like some of these people running for president are extremists. They're about as, anyway, we don't need to get too political, but that's the scary part, is that we're in the midst of a presidential election. And someone leading in the polls has the gall to say that. So and again, I don't use that lightly because I think it's overused when people compare things to Hitler and when people compare things to the Holocaust. But we are, unfortunately, it sounds like we're getting a little close to that type of thing, and it is scary.
So I'm sure this past week also that the model for the Statue of Liberty was a Muslim woman. Did you know that?
No.
Look it up. It's interesting. Interesting story behind it.
We believe you.
Anyway, as an aside, what were you going to say?
Something you said, something both of you said. You talk about taking the prophet out of Islam.
Yeah.
And what you end up with is a book of words and ideas. And Rob, something you said that triggered the same thought. I'm struggling to remember what it was exactly. Thinking of your grandmother with a star on her clothes. So it's easy for us, any of us, to get into the thoughts, the ideas, the letters of the law, the letters of the scriptures, and leave out the man who we call the prophet. Leave out that girl with the star on her. To leave out the human face of the people that we love to vilify, that we love to hate, or that we're afraid of. And I think of the rich opportunity that it's been for us to get to know each other. And it's not just Muslim, it's Azkan.
Yeah.
It's not just a Jew, it's Rob Wertheimer. And all of a sudden, Judaism has a face and a kind of a sense of humor and curly hair, And that's what needs to happen if we can somehow get to know each other, and dare to let down our guard and see the human being looking at us and look into their eyes. And suddenly, Islam isn't so scary and strange. And suddenly we're in the presence of something more than the absence of conflict. We're in the presence of a kind of a holy communion with one another, a kind of a richness, a kind of a pleasure, a kind of a feast of life. That sort of, to me, is peace, the presence of something rich and alive and life-giving is shalom, salam, peace. And here it is. And we keep it away from ourselves through our fear and our ignorance, because we don't know the people we're vilifying and talking about. We just got ideas that we've heard on the news from our heroes, he who shall not be named. And we repeat that kind of stuff that we hear, rather than, the warmth of a handshake and a looking at one another. So I think this relationship is the presence of something that is all too scarce in our fearful, hateful talk.
I think when you mentioned about understanding the religion in that person, I think what we do, or politicians or people do, that don't hate others. I mean, it could be a Muslim hating Christian, Christian hating whatever. Those people, I think, they choose the easy route, because it is easy to separate. It is easy to segregate. The tougher part is, and what we're responsible of, and this is the part God is testing us, is trying to love each other. That's not easy, what you're saying. Yeah. It's not easy. So this is why not everyone is doing this. And those who claim to lead, they talk to the masses and preach an easy solution, which is just, segregation and saying we hate them and we fear. I mean, we shouldn't follow these false leaders. That's what I'm saying. Those are false leaders. It doesn't matter. It could be anyone in my religious belief. Those are false leaders, and we should give them a lesson by saying, no, I want to do it the hard part, because my life should have a meaning. It can't be that easy. The meaning is, forgiving is really tough. It's tough. But once you forgive, you have excelled. You're above a human being now. You're something very close to what you actually are, a part of God. That's what it is. That's what it is.
Yeah. It's a miracle.
Yeah.
Becoming children of God.
It's not easy.
I used to say to students, to build on what you said, do you know of any parent who's ever had to teach their child to be naughty, to do the wrong thing? That comes naturally. So when you talk about how hard of work it is for us as humans throughout our entire life cycle, who have a first inclination almost always to say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing, think the wrong thing, to have that overcome with a spirit of forgiveness and reconciliation is really hard work. And so maybe as our time has slipped by quite a bit more quickly than I thought it would today, we ought to sort of close on that note that we are in a season of peace in a culture that prides itself with being a predominantly Christian culture. So you see it on every store window. You see it on most Christmas cards, including the one I send out. You see it all over. And yet it's got a kind of a syrupy sugar coating on it, when in fact peace takes work, daily work, hourly work, not to divide, but to include, and not to hate, but to forgive, and not to say nasty things, but to put the best construction on everything. And so why don't we give each of you a final time to say about what you might plan to be doing this season to renew the desire to be about the super hard work of peace. We started with Rob before, so I think we better start with Dean this time.
Well, I wanted to tell about a poster that I saw, and I better do it now or I won't get a chance to do it. But I was thinking about this as I came here tonight. Years and years ago at St. Martin's Table, a little bookstore and cafe on Riverside Avenue in Minneapolis. It was kind of a little center for peace and peace studies in the neighborhood there. And they had a poster that said, "There is no way to peace. Peace is the way." And I remember that just struck me, and it has stuck with me all these years. That was 25 years ago, and I continually come back to that, and I think, okay, to live in peace, then it's got to start with me. And so in this season, when we celebrate the birth of the one we Christians call the Prince of Peace, I really plan to make peace my way and to speak. I think mainly for me it is speaking, acting, but speaking words of peace, no gossip. I don't want to listen to gossip, just simple things that I want to be a person of peace for all people. Maybe I just take it for this month or something, you know. Try to take a small chunk, and it's got to start with me. So that's what I'm taking away here today.
Reminds me of an almost impossible task. The church we were going to at the beginning of Lent last year, as an Episcopalian priest, and he said, you know, everybody speaks about giving up something for Lent, chocolate or whatever. He said, how about giving up being judgmental for Lent? And Liz and I got in the car and thought, shoot, that's not going to be bad. And before we made it home. So,
good luck.
God be with you.
God be with you.
Two left.
I will let you close. I'll go because I don't have the.
Okay.
I had a little song I was going to. I had from the Old Testament. Shalom is a blessing, a manifestation of divine grace. So I just thought I'd read peace through the Bible. But I like a lot what you said, Dean, about how peace begins with you. And I think from the Tao Te Ching, they said there is no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. And that's the peace thing is a paraphrasing of that. But it makes a lot of sense. You know, like charity begins at home, peace begins at home, love begins at home. I need to be the best person I can, to live the best life I can, to be an example to everyone else that might come in contact with me, to be a person of religion, of God, of love, divine love and peace. And if each person is living the best life they can in peace and in love and with God, how can that be any better way to do it? It starts with each person, like you said. I agree with that. And I think education's important too, to educate those that are fearful, that are ignorant, that do not know better, or even those that do, and try and show them that there is a better way. And we don't have to, you know, and to learn from our history. That's also a big thing we've been talking about tonight. We really do need to learn from our history, because as they say, otherwise it will be repeated. So, shalom.
So I definitely concur with what Dean and Rob said, and I think peace should start with ourselves, and I think the inner peace, because if you're not in peace with yourself as a person, you'll be if you start fighting with yourself, how can you be in peace with others if you fight with yourself first? So, and that's I think. The mystic part of Islam says, I mean, the mysticism or the Sufism says, you have to be in peace with yourself. And this is hard work. That takes your whole life. So what you do, you try to subdue your passions. I'm not saying ambitions, but all your vices, whatever they are, by doing some prayers, by at least, I mean, you can do a meditation or when you pray in Islam, 5-time prayer, that's what it is for, 5-time prayer. In cumulative, it's roughly an hour. What you do, you stay before the Creator and you say, you know, I'm here because you summoned me. So I'm here before you, you summoned me, I obey, because I'm unworthy. And the more you tell yourself that you're unworthy, you suppress all your vices or whatever they are, and you start to be a better person. But it's not going to happen like this. It takes your life, I believe. And again, going to church, I think, is the same. Or having your prayer before going to bed, it's the same. I think we should start, as you said, and use it with ourselves, and create an inner peace, and just know that really, compared to the universe, to the Creator who created the universe, what are we? Thank you, and really peace, and Merry Christmas for you, and Happy Hanukkah for you. I think it's been this week, right?
We're right in the middle.
Right in the middle, yeah. So, and for us, for Muslims, take care of your own belief, and make sure that you don't go to the edges. I mean, that's what I can say. Thank you.
So we thank you for being with us again. We hope that this little time together will be instrumental in offering you the opportunity to think about things, to pray about things, to work each day in your own lives in some way for personal peace and for peace on this small planet that we all share. So shalom, peace, salam. Goodbye.